It's a very warm welcome to Africa 360. We're the program that goes right across the continent to bring you news and views that you won't get anywhere else. And of course, those views happen to have a very distinctly African perspective. I'm Chris Maroleng and you're watching Africa 360. Well, the search has intensified for more than 200 Nigerian girls who went missing after they were abducted by the Islamist militant group Boko Haram. The abduction has sparked widespread anger across the world, with some accusing the Nigerian government of not doing enough to bring back these girls. But as the search for the missing girls continues, countries such as the United States, Britain and France have offered help to secure their release. But before we go a little bit deeper into our assessment of what's been going on in Nigeria, let's just give you a timeline which will give you a sense of some of the major events that have taken place since the girls disappeared in the middle of last month. Well, as you can see, on April the 14th, 276 girls were kidnapped from the northeastern part of Nigeria in a town called Chibok, as indicated by that flashing light that you're seeing up there on your screen. This graphic gives you a sense of what happened when these girls were taken, put into trucks. Fortunately, some of those girls managed to escape. Now, on the 29th of April, parents of the abducted girls held a protest against what they described as the indifference of the government, as you can see there, about their anguish for their children being abducted. And this really heightened reports that the girls had been sold off, as had been pointed out earlier on. Now, on May the 2nd, Boko Haram militants were said to hold at least 223 of those girls. Initially, 276 of the girls who were abducted, after 53 managed to escape. Well, Abu Bakr Shakur there in that video that we just played also indicated that he would sell the girls into slavery if his demands were not met. Now, the interesting thing is that Boko Haram also released a new video purportedly showing some of the missing Nigerian schoolgirls. In it, it's claimed the teenagers who we're seeing up here on our screen had converted to Islam and will not be released until all of Boko Haram's prisoners had been freed. A very sad situation emerging there. Well, on the 13th of May, the United States also offered to provide assistance in the form of surveillance and intelligence, and most recently, other states from the international community have also offered assistance to the Nigerian government.
When it comes to the approach to Boko Haram, in this case, Nigeria, of course, has the lead, and we play a supporting role. It is the policy of the United States to deny kidnappers the benefits of their criminal acts, and that includes ransoms or concessions.
Now, with the United States and other international partners having joined in the search for the missing girls, some are questioning Africa's ability to protect itself, particularly from the threats that are caused by acts of terrorism that seem to be increasing in number right around the continent.
It was designated a terrorist organization by the United States last year. Boko Haram, a name synonymous with horror, violence, and the lack of security. The sect is on a mission to establish a state ruled by Sharia law and to put a stop to what it deems westernization. Its name literally translates to "Western education is sinful." The group was formed under the leader Muhammad Yusuf in 2002 in the northern Nigerian city of Maiduguri. In 2009, security forces seized the group's headquarters, captured some of its fighters, and killed its leader. They declared Boko Haram finished. But its fighters regrouped under a new leader, Abubakar Shekau, and stepped up their insurgency. Northern Nigeria has a history of spawning militant Islamist groups, but Boko Haram has outlived them and has proven to be far more lethal. The group has staged audacious attacks in northern and central Nigeria, bombing churches, bus ranks, military barracks, and even police and the United Nations headquarters in the capital city, Abuja. It also stepped up its campaign against Western education, which it believes corrupts the moral values of Muslims. It's attacked boarding schools in Yobe in March and in Chibok, Borno State, just recently. There, it abducted more than 200 schoolgirls. It said it will marry them off, a reference to an ancient belief that women captured in conflict are part of the booty of war. The capture has sparked international outrage and anger at home.
We really need to fasten our security issues. Our security in this country is so porous, and I think we really need to do something about that.
Just praying, my children are not there, but I pray those people are children's somebody's prayer. They are God's inheritance. Do you understand? And they're forcing them to change them to Muslim, that they must be Muslim by force. It's not. You know that there's somebody. People are behind them.
Their act of kidnapping the schoolgirls and forcing them to marriage is totally forbidden in Islam.
A month has passed since the schoolgirls disappeared. Speculation is rife that they may be in neighboring Cameroon, Chad, or Niger. Boko Haram has agreed to release the girls, provided the Nigerian government releases its members in prison. As the search for the missing girls intensified, countries like the United States, France, and Britain have offered to help. Nigeria's government has been strongly criticized at home about the handling of its security challenges. Recent events have made clear that now more than ever, Nigeria and its neighbors need fresh thinking on how to improve security. Doing so could not only directly save countless lives, but will also ensure the kind of stable economic environment the country needs to sustain its status as Africa's largest economy. Aduria Chumba, Lagos.
Well, do join us after the break. When we come back, we'll give you some perspective on Nigeria's security situation, particularly following these recent terrorist attacks and the abduction of those schoolgirls. I'll be joined by guests here in our studio to help us unpack these recent developments, and that's only on Africa 360.
We have to understand the fact that also over the years, we have come to accept the culture of impunity, where people carry out violence and nothing is done, to stop them.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Africa 360. Our focus today is on Nigeria's security threat caused by terrorism after more than 200 Nigerian girls went missing. They were abducted by an Islamist group known as Boko Haram about a month ago. Well, helping us to unpack this a little further is Richard Iroanya from the University of Pretoria and Adetunji Omotola, who is a social political commentator. Also joining us is Professor Rok Ajulu from Dajo Associates. Please note, we did invite a representative from the Nigerian government to take part in this discussion, but they declined our invitation. Richard, can I start with you? Essentially, about a year ago, 12 months ago, to be precise, the Nigerian government declared a state of emergency in 3 northeastern states, ostensibly to deal with the threat caused by Boko Haram. But it seems that the state of emergency has not been effective.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Chris. If the problem of Boko Haram is not actually a problem that we can solve, only by military tactics. Now, a lot of people suggested, using the carrot and stick approach, where we open the door for dialogue, and at the same time we use the military, approach, and hopefully that the moderates among the Boko Haram insurgents might, of course, accept the carrot, and of course, those who refuse will be dealt with through the military approach. But this so far has not worked, as we can say, and rightly pointed out, because now we have international team has arrived in Nigeria to help solve the problem of Boko Haram.
But before we look at the outside intervention that has been provided here, Professor Rok, what does this say about the capacity of the Nigerian state, particularly its military, its state security infrastructure, to deal with this asymmetrical threat caused by terrorist groups like Boko Haram?
No, it's just, I don't think it's a question of the military capacity or intelligence capacity. I think this is a case where, quite clearly, nobody seems to understand what's going on and what should be done. There's a history behind Boko Haram, and this history clearly is northern-based. It's based on, arises from the issues of non-inclusiveness of a great majority of people from the north, in particular in these states of Sokoto, Kaduna, and actually moving also into northern Cameroon and Niger and this area. So these are areas which have got a specific history of how ordinary people have been excluded from. So Boko Haram has got a history which has changed with the emergence or arrival of Al-Qaeda recently.
But here,
so
what I'm saying to you, Professor, is that what we do note has been a stymied approach by the Nigerian state, notwithstanding the histories, to deal with the current threat. Why is this?
The current threat needs, one, to get the information of who is who and where do they operate from. Okay, how's the link with the Al-Qaeda taken place? And then this has got to be conducted, as he says, politically. This need to be a political approach of how you deal with these issues. Because if you take the American approach that we are going to smoke you out and then kill you, it's not going to solve the problem. Because the problem is based in the society, in the northern society.
So, Adetunji, given the fact that we're seeing here a general consensus that the military option is not necessarily the one that would work, is there an acceptance, particularly on the part of Boko Haram, to engage in negotiations, engagement with the government, or is it a bridge that has been passed?
Look, before I answer that question, let me just add a few points there. In terms of the Boko Haram modus operandi, you recall that before the state of emergency, the theater of operations was in the towns and cities. Then the state of emergency pushed them back, and they fled across the border. Now, what they then did was they went, regrouped, and started getting into the villages, soft targets. So they were working around places like Dikwa, and places like Chibok, and places like Baga. They were on the border towns. So they were quite sinisterly clever. And the government really didn't anticipate that. They were waiting for them to come into the towns like Bauchi and Maiduguri and so on. And even in places like Yobe towns, the government wasn't on the edges of the border. You've also got to remember that Nigerian borders are very porous. These three states that border Niger Republic, Chad, and Cameroon, those are porous borders and very long distances. I mean, you have distance between Chibok and Maiduguri of over 120 kilometers in rugged terrain. Now, also, the military in Nigeria do not really have a counterterrorism experience. So what they've done is to bring out their biggest tanks and try and crush the Boko Haram guys. And what these guys have been able to do is move in cells. So they're very few, but they come in, attack, and they move away. So that's really their method.
Given this tactic and what seems to be a very effective way of carrying out this asymmetrical terrorist warfare that we're seeing them striking at the softer targets in society, has the government been able to adapt?
Well, look, we've seen that the government has not been able to adapt. It's very clear that if you're going to go into a village and take 270-odd girls, the government has not been able to adapt. Having said that, though, with this high-profile kidnapping of the girls, I think what the government, because we spend about $6 billion every year, the 2014 budget is about $6 billion. I think the government will now have to spend less money on tanks, invest more, because, for example, it costs $500,000 to train one U.S. Marine, and it costs $10,000 to train one Nigerian soldier. So we need to invest more
So, Richard, you wanted to come into the conversation here.
Yes,
What was your...
I think I would like to differ a little bit with Tunji here. When it comes to tackling the insurgency, it is not totally untrue to say that Nigeria does not have experience. I think we do have experience because we have tackled the problem of Matasini uprising in the 1980s. And this Matasini group is the Boko Haram group is an offshoot of Matasini uprising, and they have been operating since the 1960s. But I think the problem we are experiencing in Nigeria goes beyond that. We have to understand the fact that also over the years we have come to accept the culture of impunity, where people carry out violence and nothing is done, to stop them, and nobody is brought to justice. We have had riots, and we have people being killed, sometimes on religious grounds, and nothing is being done, or nobody has been, charged, convicted, as a means of stopping, this kind of insurgence.
So impunity, then, is this one way to understand what we're seeing and the lack of ability of the government to engage?
It's just one way to understand the issue. But I think we need to go beyond that. We got beyond that. What are government considerations? Also, good luck, Jonathan's political consideration for not moving more forcefully into this area, or for not applying or deploying security to get this information, because anywhere else, and this is the experience that we've seen all over the world since about the American incident, that this is not what you deal with the tanks. The tanks doesn't solve this kind of thing. It's a different kind of war. But why is it that Nigeria, who's been very successful in West Africa, in all the conflicts in West Africa, and bring them to a stop, why is it Nigeria cannot sort its own out? So we must look for answers inside Nigeria.
Well, prospects of internationalizing the situation in Nigeria by accepting global intervention will be going into the consequences of Nigeria's current war with Boko Haram in northern Nigeria. Do stay with us only on Africa 360.
The fact is that every single day in Nigeria, even the president's uncle, even the finance minister's dad, even Mikel Obi's father has been kidnapped. And kidnap for ransom has become a franchise in Nigeria.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Africa 360. Our focus today is on Nigeria's security situation and the threat posed by Islamist military group Boko Haram and other terrorist organizations that are operating on the African continent. Let me start with you, Adetunji. A lot of people looking at this situation, looking at Nigeria, say in any other society, if 300 girls almost had gone missing, the whole nation would, go into chaos, and stronger intervention and participation by everyone in society would be seen. Why is it in Nigeria that it's taken 4 weeks to get the kind of momentum?
The fact is that every single day in Nigeria, even the president's uncle, even the finance minister's dad, even Mikel Obi's father has been kidnapped. And kidnap for ransom has become a franchise in Nigeria. And that's the reality from the days of the militants in the Niger Delta up until recently in Delta.
But Adetunji, I get this, but it really sounds here like you're being apologist for a situation which is outrageous and has seen stymied intervention on the part of the Nigerian government. Why is that?
Let me respond to that. You see, there's a certain level of, if you like, becoming immune from something that is a criminality. Every day, people get kidnapped in Nigeria. And so what people do is they say to you, look, quickly try and pay up, negotiate and pay up. So when this Boko Haram kidnapped 200-300 girls, what happens is it's just a larger kidnap arrangement.
Yes.
Yeah, no, like to add to what he's saying, you remember some time ago also, the Abia state in Nigeria was also, Aba, precisely the city of Aba, witnessed this unprecedented, kidnapping in the country's history. And when they kidnapped school children, that was when the government got involved. The military got seriously involved. And the situation was, was stopped immediately. And we've not had serious cases of kidnapping in Abia State. And that was the same government of President Goodluck Jonathan. Now, going back to the north now, we have to bring out the Nigerian ethnic differences, religious differences, and these are part of the problem that is causing Boko Haram. He did mention them, a while ago, and of course the porous border. And if you go back to history, you find out that the northern part, the northeastern part of the country has been a very volatile region.
So do you buy the excuses by our colleagues that have been brought forward?
They're not excuses. I think this is not unique to Nigeria. Yeah, well, we're facing it in Kenya. The bombings in Kenya have been coming almost like that since we got into Somali. The kidnapping aspect in Kenya has also become increasingly prominent where people get kidnapped. So I go back to the question that I was raising, that we are dealing with the political issues and issues of political governance. How is it that societies have let abnormal things like kidnapping become part and parcel of our interaction?
Give us some clues. Why is that the case?
No, we're looking basically at what I've traditionally called regimes which have lost legitimacy, and they don't seem to see that those areas need to deal with. They don't operate like normal states would operate, because in any normal state, if you've got 3 kidnappings in a week, you set up a special force which is going to deal with that and make sure that you eradicate it. Why is it that our politicians are behaving in this fashion? So what is happening in Nigeria might be just a bigger scale of what's happening in Kenya. And if you look at those 2 regimes, you look at regimes which have questionable political legitimacy. Whether it's Goodluck Jonathan, when he imposed a second term instead of negotiating with the North, or is Kenyatta, the regime, and earlier on Kibaki regime, which has followed by a lot of contestations of the legitimacy. And when states and when ruling elite is suffers from these problems, legitimacy, they take their eyes off.
Taking your eyes off the ball here, gentlemen. Yeah. I must ask this question. Given what has been said here, I think we're picking up a trend. We're picking up a trend here which might indicate to us that, yes, today we're seeing Boko Haram. Yes, it's Al-Shabaab in the east. We're going to see more of this happening in Africa if governments continue to be unresponsive to some of these community challenges. Is that okay? Is that correct?
The gap between the rich and poor should be narrowed. The government must be more responsible. They must care. Even with the president, what people complained about was his body language after the bombings in Iroanya. And what they also complained about was, even after the girls were abducted, what did the government do? And the military, they said they had rescued the girls, then they retracted the statement. So we really must hope that African governments and African leaders appreciate that in a democracy, the power rests with the people, and you must carry the people along, and you must improve their livelihood.
Richard?
I agree with him that you need to improve the social, our social conditions in Nigeria. But at the same time, let us strengthen the judiciary. Let us not condone this culture of impunity that has been going on in Nigeria for a very long time.
Point well made. Final word from you, Prof.
I think that your question touched on captured the point. And the point simply that it's not happening only in Nigeria. Yeah. We see it in Central African Republic. We see it in Chad. We see it in Southern Sudan. And all those are underpinned by one problem. And these are issues, the governments who don't care. Authoritarian rule that is endless. And those authoritarian rules are symbolized, are underpinned by all the issues that my colleagues here are raising. Nigeria, since rebasing, is the biggest economy in Africa, but you don't see it. You don't see that side of the economy. At least if you come to South Africa and somebody tells you this is a side economy, you can see it as you drive from the airport, that, wow, this is an economy. But your big economy is not that. This kind of governance have allowed this kind of issues to happen. The issues that Richard are raising around institutions, the institutions have been weakened deliberately so that this elite can continue to do the things that it is doing. So, but unless this changes not only in Nigeria, unless this changes in the continent, we face quite a bleak future.
What a fantastic place for us to bring to an end our conversation, certainly not just on Nigeria, but on some of the challenges facing the African continent and the consequences of some of these challenges. Well, all that's left is to thank our guests for those fantastic insights. We really enjoyed it. You can also join the debate about Africa by telling us what you think about the situation in Nigeria. Do you think Africa has done enough to save the girls, or has it acted as a spectator? You can also join the debate by liking our Facebook page or tweet us your views at Africa360_ENCA. You can also send us an email to africa360@enca.com. So until next time, when we look forward to bringing you Africa like you've never seen it before, do take care.